Hi, everybody. My name is Sean, and I'm representing the group that includes Asadur Chowdhury and Victor Avdalov. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for their feedback on the previous videos. We really took your advice to heart, and we incorporated a lot of your suggestions into our application. So what have we made for our capstone project? We have created an app that allows users to explore the international relations of Twitter. And what does that mean, really? Well, international relations is a really complex domain, and there isn't really a consensus about epistemologies or methodologies. Even so, we believe that Twitter data from the world's embassies will allow us to kind of glimpse these narratives that kind of hold together the diplomatic space. Given the time and computational constraints, we chose to do a proof of concept with the embassy networks of only the United States and Russia, and that resulted in about 300 embassies and over 1 million tweets. And our goal was to take these million tweets and create a navigable application that allows us to quickly find answers to our questions. So not only do we want to find answers to our questions, we also want to be able to find new questions to ask. So let me go ahead and show you what we have in the application. Let me just go to the first page. And this is our diplomacy dashboard. We can explore two different networks, Russia and the United States, at the network level. So that means we're aggregating all the data for all the different Twitter embassies for each of these networks. So we have all the embassies of the US and all the embassies of Russia. And we can get all these descriptive statistics about them. This is a very interactive graph. We can choose very specific things and see where particular tokens are featured the most. We can do that with named entities as well. If we look at the events in the United States, for example, these are named entity events. We can see the nice regular rhythm on this heat map time series that shows us when the events are taking place. So if we want to see where the US was talking about COVID-19 the most, apparently Trinidad and Japan. Now we know. We also have the embassy level dashboard, and that allows us to go into the particular embassy. So the previous network level dashboard that was looking at all the embassies in Russia, for example, in aggregate. This allows us to look at a particular embassy. So I can see the Russian embassy in, I don't know, Italy. And we can look in detail about what's going on in Italy. We can look at what English adjectives are the most used, for instance, and then we can look at the heat map to see when they were used, and then we can click on the heat map to see the original tweets. And here we have the original tweets that result from clicking on the heat map. I think this is a nice, efficient way to really dive into a particular country and see what's going on in response to a particular event or something like that. We also have our comparative time series, and that allows us to take any of those tokens that we've seen that we got through spaCy and other data mining techniques. We can compare those two. So if I take Albania and Albania, American Albania and Russian Albania, we can have a comparison of how frequently either of those countries tweet. We can look at other features as well. Our network analysis dashboard is having a few problems at the moment, but we'll have that up for you later. We have a lovely topic modeling dashboard. We're using classic latent semantic indexing and other techniques to really explore the different topics that emerge. And so we can look at all the countries in aggregate, or we can go down to a particular country and see what's going on. We can also choose different languages. Asadur developed this. It's quite fun to play with. I created the document embeddings dashboard, and the techniques are a little bit complicated. We used BERT to generate vectors for each Twitter account so that we could compare the similarities and differences of entire Twitter accounts based on one vector. And it actually proved to be really effective. And some of the things we can do are find out which embassies are most similar to a given account. So if I choose a country, let's say Ghana, it says the most similar accounts to Ghana, or America's presence in Ghana, would be Malawi, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya. Qualitatively, this makes a lot of sense. And the fact that we were able to achieve these results with math is quite amazing. The power of NLP and the power of BERT. So we can also look at outlier accounts, and we can also look at which accounts are the most divergent. And then lastly, we have our word embeddings dashboard. So previously the document embeddings dashboard, that's looking at the difference of messaging within countries, but we're using word embeddings to look at the differencing of messaging about countries. So we created two language models. We created two word2vec models, one for the American accounts and one for the Russian accounts. And then we took the word vectors for the names of the countries. So we can basically see which countries are mentioned in the most unusual contexts. That's, I guess, one way to sum it up. And the results for the United States were Iran, Russia, China, Venezuela, and Syria. This is quite strange. The toppers on this list are all countries with which the United States has kind of an adversarial relationship. And what's really happening here is we have our typical countries with run-of-the-mill diplomacy PR, like so-and-so ambassador had a great visit. We're having an event at the embassy, not so interesting. But if we look at these outlier accounts, that's when this country is being discussed in a very unusual way. Because remember, word2vec is kind of looking at the context of a given token. And because these are outliers, we know that their contexts are very different than the typical embassy account. So these are the unusual ones for the United States. And if we look at Russia, we see a similar pattern. Ukraine and Syria, those are really the countries in which Russia has a very strong geopolitical interest. And these are very much outliers here. We can also search the word embedding to see the context, and we can search the language model in order to see the contexts in which these words appear. So if we Google China, or if we search China, for instance, in this word embedding, we see all sorts of words: baseless, unlawful, coercive. That's the way in which the United States is discussing China, talking about militarized, predatory, aggressive. We can look at Iran too. Embargo, resolutions, arms, extortion, dictators. This is so interesting because it really tells us the context, the kind of the adjectives and nouns that are being used in concert with the word Iran, words that are kind of related to the word Iran. What we would expect if we just take a normal country, or I guess a less contentious country, I should say, like Austria, we expect to see just the names of other countries. And that's exactly what happened here. We see New Zealand, Hungary, Czechia, United Kingdom. That's what we would typically expect. But if we have these outlier countries, they generally appear in much more unusual contexts. And these properties are super interesting to me. I bet somebody could write a very long paper about what makes this property possible. But some problems we've had, we would really like to put this application on Heroku, but we haven't been able to figure out how to make it work with Amazon, the S3 database, because we just have a lot of different files. It's a very large, complex application, and the free version of Heroku hasn't really worked for us. So hopefully in the future, we can get the whole thing online and you guys can play with it and give some more feedback. Thanks so much for the advice that you guys gave us over the course of this project, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have produced as well. Thank you.